Welcome to Lay It Out, the No Bullshit Science podcast.
With extra bullshit.
I'm Curie.
That was very squeaky. I'm Alice.
And we're coming to you from the same place as last time.
That's why it's slightly more echoey than... I know. It's not really, actually.
It was slightly echoey compared to before.
Uh-huh.
But hopefully this one will be a little bit better.
Hopefully. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So, it's been a big week for you, Alice.
Yeah, I was on my holidays.
Again.
Home to vote.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
I went home last week. It was really lovely. Ate out loads of restaurants. Saw my friends.
Okay, but the actually important thing.
I was getting to that. That was my build up to the big moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a big referendum in Ireland last week to repeal the 8th Amendment, which made it illegal for women to have abortions, which led to all these horrible situations that have been like kind of widely publicised in the last few years. So then it all kind of stemmed or built up to this referendum. We couldn't have one, I think, until now because you can only have a referendum every 10 years.
Oh, really?
So somebody told me. So they had one like 10 years ago and it didn't pass.
As in you can't have a referendum on the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
The marriage equality to legalise gay marriage,
right.
that was 3 years ago.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So we're doing well in terms of social change over in Ireland.
That's the thing, right? Ireland is like taking leaps and bounds forwards, even though you're coming from quite a backwards place already.
Yeah. We started from the bottom, now we're here. So, yeah.
We've quoted Drake a couple times on this podcast now.
Maybe we should get him to sponsor us.
Maybe.
Him and we think one of our new sponsors should also be Viennetta.
Oh yeah, we've eaten Viennetta before at least 4 episodes.
I'd say at least half of our podcast we've had Viennetta. So yeah, Viennetta, sponsor us please. Or actually it's HB. So, yeah.
And also
who are Irish. HB are Irish.
And also Viennetta's always on offer, so you're clearly doing okay.
Oh. But anyway, yeah. The referendum looked a bit hairy there the week I was home. There was a lot of debates that were looking like the no side were out in force.
Well, there are a lot of comparisons to Brexit in the media and stuff.
I wouldn't say a huge amount. But I wasn't what?
Can I say a bit about this?
No.
Well,
we'll cut you out,
okay,
but I'll say
there
it.
was a story about a British journalist, I think, that tried to compare the referendum and Brexit, and everyone was just like...
Really angry?
Yeah, because they tried to say... Oh, maybe it's not important.
They're so different.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember the context of it, but it was like he was saying something and everyone was like, that's not the same at all. Because, it was like that the people who voted to stay are still affected by the result of Brexit, whereas people who voted no in the referendum aren't affected by this. Do you know, that kind of way?
Yeah. Anyway, I guess I'm going to be quiet again.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to reiterate
No, it's
any
fine.
of that?
We'll just leave them in, but like...
Oh, will we?
Yeah.
Okay.
But just know that we weren't happy about it.
Okay, yeah.
We did tell them not to talk.
But
I feel like what's
it's a
going
big
on
issue.
at the moment
And
is
she's
very
still
balanced.
talking. We said that's fine.
I suppose when you feature 3 Irish people on a podcast and start talking about the abortion referendum, it's going to be hard to keep quiet.
Like we have relevant stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really great though because it was kind of it was a weird time and the campaigns were quite aggressive, some more than others, but I need to... Well, actually no, I'm on a podcast, I don't need to be neutral, do I?
Well, no. See, this is the thing, right? Because, I tweeted about it. So you tweeted it on your personal Twitter and then I retweeted it. I did stop to think about whether to do that because there's that whole thing of people don't like it when...
We show opinions.
Yeah. Because I saw quite a lot of things so on Instagram, influencers would post their opinions about it and then they'd be getting all these comments from people like, oh, it's embarrassing that you're talking about politics, you shouldn't be talking about politics and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, whatever, fuck it.
But yeah, no, because it's like their business is their lifestyle. I don't know, is politics lifestyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, why shouldn't they?
Yeah, and if you have an influence, you should use it.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have an influence at all.
No.
In any definition of the word. But people do interact with us on Twitter, and I just thought...
Any people that we don't personally know?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Shout out to Dr. Mike. You're great.
Woo, Dr. Mike.
We know you listen, so hey. So yeah, so then I was sort of like, oh, I don't know whether I should tweet this.
Oh yeah, but
fuck it. Like, and also we're a 3-woman podcast. If anything, we should be able to talk about women's rights.
Yes, because that was the thing. A lot of people, that I don't think even people that voted yes, but that maybe didn't feel as strongly about it. We're kind of like, oh, it's a weird thing to celebrate. Like, why would anyone celebrate it? Even though they were voting yes. But then, like, what you're actually celebrating was women's rights because, this was one of the things that was on a few posters, I feel. But it was like, so in Ireland, if your cow on your farm is pregnant and might die from the pregnancy, they'll give the cow an abortion. If a woman is pregnant and may have died from the pregnancy, they wouldn't give the woman an abortion.
That's
so,
fucking ridiculous.
Cows had more rights than...
But yeah, no, congratulations, Ireland. That's amazing.
Yeah, woo.
Yeah.
I was really like feeling the like love for being Irish, and then when I got back, I was like, why did I leave Ireland? But no, I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. No, it's really great.
Back here in your office doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really great, especially because you were quite doubtful that it would go through.
Oh yeah, because there's a few different reasons. Like there was all these debates coming up to it, and the debates didn't look great. Yeah. And then a lot of the older generation. So like, the older the generations got, the more no's I feel like there was.
The thing is, and also you think, right, the older generation, you know, they didn't really have abortions, so they were pumping out all these children. They must be looking at some of their kids and being like, if only this law.
Okay, I guarantee if you asked that question to any Irish mammies, they would not say yes. I don't think so. Well, maybe, I don't know.
You never know.
Maybe down in their deepest, darkest thoughts.
They pumped out like 10 kids back in the day. There's got to be one of them they hate.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, great. Snails Island. Woo! And speaking of legalising abortion, Love Island starting on Monday.
Why does that relate to abortion?
Some of them might need that lawsuit.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. But anyway, apart from that whole angle, I'm extremely excited for Love Island.
Me too. Did you actually watch the video I sent you?
No, because I came back from 9 days of holidays and nearly had a meltdown at my desk this morning, so I didn't exactly get time.
Oh, but also, if you're listening and you hate Love Island, which most people do, please don't judge us. We're gonna talk about smart stuff in a second.
Who hates Love Island?
A lot of people hate Love Island. Silent Demelza hates Love Island.
Demelza looks, again, really offended.
I think she just hates it because she knows that if she starts watching it, she's not going to be able to stop.
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure.
She has watched
she's
it.
watched
she still
it.
hates
Oh, okay, that's fair.
So there's the Meet the New People thing that's gone out, and I tagged Alice in it, and I don't know if you heard me, but I burst out laughing in the middle of.
I did hear you laughing at one point.
While I was watching it, because there's this girl on there, and she's like, you know, they were like, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And one guy was an A&E doctor, and one guy was an engineer. This girl was like, yeah, so I'm a manager of a shoe shop, and I get 33% off, so that's good.
And that's what made you burst out laughing?
Yeah, because I was just like, okay. And then there was this other girl that was like saying she's a barmaid. And she was like, yeah, I know how to put a perfect pint. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, so I'm going to show you. And then she was telling us how to pour a pint. She's literally like, so you pull the lever down and you stand there with your glass and you just smile at the customers and then you give it a little shake and then you need to make sure there's a perfect head and that's it. I was like, this is not the perfect pint. Yeah. And then, ooh, is it? Okay, Silent Demelza fact, the girl who knows how to pour the perfect pint is Danny Dyer's daughter.
And another fun fact, she was on that other show that they made around Christmas by the creators of Love Island, but she got kicked out really early because she broke her arm or dislocated her shoulder or something.
So they obviously
gave her a second chance.
Can't Danny Dyer just like give her a leg up?
This is probably her leg up.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I literally follow the lives of the people in the series of Love Island that I watched with really closely.
I mean, Camilla and Jamie are still together. What the fuck is that about?
Oh, yeah, I missed that season. Yeah.
Olivia and Thingy are still together.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting married. They look really happy. Yeah. If they ever broke up, I think I'd really lose faith in everything.
Okay.
More so than I lost faith when like Victoria Beckham they're still together. Oh, wow.
Are you thinking of Brad Pitt?
Yeah. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Aniston. And
I think mine would be
Brad Pitt. What the fuck is wrong with Brad Pitt? I've literally only had that epiphany now.
Right. Shall we introduce our guests?
Yes.
Alice has finally contributed to the podcast.
I finally managed to wrangle in some people.
And we have Kate,
Hello.
Alice's younger sister, and Hannah, who is Kate's friend.
Hello.
Welcome.
So you technically only got one person who's actually related to you, so it's kind of like I have to be here.
Well, yeah, I kind of didn't really give you a choice, did I? But you wanted to come.
I know I did, but I'm just saying.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that little opening.
No
Kate's
worries.
been living with me for the past 4 weeks.
Our tension's running a bit high.
Tensions are running slightly high considering we are sharing a bed and her stuff is all over my room.
It's actually really not at all. She's very dramatic.
See, okay, the one thing is I have this nice table, like it's actually a chest of drawers. And the top of the chest of drawers was the kind of the first thing you see when you walk in. And when I moved into my room, when I was like doing it up, and after Curie took me to IKEA, I like made it into a little it was just a nice little table. I had like a few little kind of like ornamenty things and some candles on it, and it was just nice. You walked into the room, and now it's full of your shit.
Okay, but in my defense, you told me I could have that table. I said you don't need to move all those things if you don't want to, and you go, no, you could have this space.
Thing is, I know how much of a neat freak, an organisation demon Alice is.
Yeah, I know.
So I can imagine you've literally got like 3 things on there and Alice is freaking out.
It's like, do you know, you just have like a space that you just kind of put things on the
Yeah.
like there's some change on it and like that type of thing.
Oh God,
And it wrecks her head.
can't deal.
I once asked Alice if we can leave her stapler out of her drawers because I use it quite a lot. And
she said no.
Yeah, she looked at me like, only if you put it back in. And I was just like, okay,
So no.
that defeats the whole thing of what I'm asking you for.
Everything has its place. That's how I operate my life. And Hannah, you've been living in London for a while now.
I have.
So you're also you're showing Kate around when she's not in my hair.
Yeah, we've been hanging out a bit.
Yeah.
I must say I'm impressed that Kate found her feet so quickly. I was kind of bumming off my friend for about 3 months when I moved over.
Yeah, to be fair, I give out about her, but she was like on spare room from kind of the minute she moved in. And you're moving out in a week's time.
Yeah.
And I can't wait.
Very on the ball.
I'm only messing. This is one of those things that like I say I can't wait until she moves out, but when she leaves I'm probably going to be really sad.
You're going to be really lonely.
Yeah, I am going to be really
And
lonely.
she's
'cause
gonna
like,
miss like the food I make her and all those type of things.
she does make really good food. That would bring us on to our next
Yeah, that was
our
a
next
nice
topic.
segue. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys do? Kate, we'll go to you first.
So at the moment I'm a research assistant.
No. What do you actually do?
Like from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did culinary arts in college, and then I was a baker. So I worked in like a little local bakery while I was in college, and then since then I did wedding cakes for a while, and then now I'm in London being a research assistant, but that also involves baking.
Lots of baking.
Yeah.
But she did really fancy wedding cakes. Like they were fancy as shit. They got write-ups and they were all for like
Well, like I worked.
B-list Irish celebrities.
I worked for someone else. It wasn't just like me.
But you made loads of this stuff.
Yeah. My boss made Rory McIlroy. Do you know who?
Oh.
The golfer.
Yeah, she made
He'd
his
be quite
wed-
famous.
Yeah, she made his
He's very
wedding cake
famous.
before I worked there though.
Oh, shit. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And Hannah, what about you?
I work in a fashion agency and we basically do the business side of fashion. So I like manage 4 brands that are based in the US and Australia, and then would do their marketing, distribution and like logistics in the UK, Europe and Middle East.
Very
So, yeah.
cool.
Cool.
It's interesting.
Okay, so just to put this out there, we have I think they our first.
Not our first.
Who did we have before?
Joe is a complete non-scientist.
Okay.
But one of our firsts, a small handful.
Of actual non-scientists.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a baker and a businesswoman.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, cool. So what do you guys think of science? Like, would you have any like interest in it? Would you ever like, read anything sciencey? Did you enjoy science in school? Anything like that? No to all of the above. Okay, moving on.
Wait, while we're here, go on.
I did a little, well, because like of my degree I did a little bit of nutrition, so I like that's
Okay, yeah.
interesting. And then other than that it would just be things that I would hear from Alice, but
Fun facts.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, should we go on to the science?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go first
exciting.
this week because Alice went first last week. So my paper is called, you might have actually seen it in the news because it's blown up quite a lot.
Okay.
The title is,
Either of you read the news?
I don't.
I do, on occasion.
Hannah, you're a businesswoman, that makes sense. Yeah, I love Kate. I don't.
It's just being honest.
We like that here. We're all about honesty.
We do. So this is called RNA from trained. Okay, I don't know how to say this. It's either aplysia. I'm gonna say aplysia.
Yeah, that sounds okay.
Aplysia.
That sounds okay. Like coming out of your mouth.
Okay. RNA from
Like
trained.
if I say Aplysia, that doesn't really sound right.
You just sound like you're saying a name.
Like a person's
like
name.
Felicia. Right, RNA from trained aplysia can induce an epigenetic engram for long-term sensitization in untrained aplysia. So,
I don't know what any of those words mean.
Okay, so RNA.
this will be the
Go.
whole podcast. So basically, this has been in the news quite a lot. It blew up recently.
Okay.
It's what you'll have seen it in the news as is they've transferred memories from one snail to another. And so the way the media's run with it is, maybe we can do this in humans soon. We can transfer our memories. As obviously, usually the theme of this podcast is that is absolute bullshit. And I'm going to show you what it actually happened.
Okay.
So they kind of did transfer memories in a way, but it's not the definition of a memory that is commonly thought to be a memory by everyone.
So it's something different than a normal memory.
It's a type of memory, but it's not
the common ones.
What the common definition of a memory. But I'll go into that in a bit.
So, question, is a pisha a slug?
Yes.
I would have never known that.
Applies.
Curie, you're not doing very well. You need to go. Okay, can I just say she's after turning to the abstract. I think you need to go back to the title. You're not done yet.
What was the word beginning with E? Epi something.
Epigenetic. We're going to go into it. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, one of the main concepts of this is called an engram. So an engram is what we think is sort of the physical representation of a memory that we have.
Okay.
So if we go to the actual definition of an engram, it's an hypothetical concept. So it's not something that we know for sure is a thing. It's a theory of memory.
Okay.
So we think it's that these lasting connections in the brain that result from lots of excitations of your brain cells. So your brain cells have electrical currents, and whenever these get excited, it causes the connections between the brains to get stronger, and it changes them in a way, and we think that's how memory is stored.
What do you mean connections between the brains?
Oh, sorry, is that what I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many brains? We don't have more than one brain. I know that.
Okay, sorry, connections between your brain cells, so your neurons.
Yeah.
So your neurons are connected, and then through those connections is how we transfer information from one to another. So we can transfer from our brain to our hands, for example, through multiple neurons.
Yeah.
And then this sense.
So it starts in one neuron.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it shoots.
And it shoots down all the other neurons to your hand.
But
I
we
think I remember that from school science.
Yeah. But we think school science. But we think that.
Don't even bother breaking it down into biology or school science.
But there's lots of other theoretical things coming out that are saying actually long-term memory could be stored in the cell body of a neuron.
Okay.
So your neuron has a round bit and then a bit that comes off it, like a long bit, and this round bit is the cell body.
Okay.
So we think
It kind of looks like Mike from Monsters Inc. Doesn't it?
No.
A little bit.
No.
It sounds like a tadpole now.
Yeah, it looks more like a tadpole.
I do remember this in biology.
Yeah.
So the neuron in the synapse.
Mhm.
What's the sorry, just back again a bit.
Your synapse is a part of your neuron. So neuron is the big thing, is the actual whole cell, and the synapse is the one part of your neuron that connects it to another neuron. That's where the connections form. So then they're looking at these aplysia, these snails, and these are medium-sized to extremely large sea slugs.
Ooh.
I wonder if they're whelks.
Oh shit.
They're not whelks.
Oh, our
Okay.
dad catches whelks.
Yeah, fun fact. Our dad's a fisherman.
He could have provided a few.
If I visit, will your dad feed me whelks?
Oh, he definitely will.
Cool.
He'd actually be delighted because none of us will eat them.
Really?
We're like, finally someone.
Have you ever had
Well,
cod's
yeah.
roe before?
I love cod's roe.
We were speaking of cod's roe.
He brings that
recently.
home a lot. It looks like a brain.
Yeah.
And it smells
But it's
awful.
tasty.
Cod's, what was it? I was going to say something about the cod's roe.
Have you
Or
had
the-
it before?
Yeah.
Well. Oh yeah, okay, so fun fact number 1 is our dad's a fisherman. Fun fact number 2, he catches shellfish, which my mother is allergic to. So yeah,
It's like a very bad pairing.
Yeah, not great.
All the
And-
rest of us can eat it though.
Yeah, but they didn't feed it to us for years because they thought we'd be allergic to. So I
Deprived
only
of
ate
prawns.
my first prawn when I was when I was what age?
Boo-hoo.
First world problems.
A hard knock life.
Yeah. Anyway,
Continue with the science.
Yes. Slight diversion
Yeah.
there into the world
So
of
they
fish.
looked at these aplesia, and what they looked at is so for us it's long-term memory. For them, they looked at a thing called long-term sensitization. So it's just something that has a lasting effect on these slugs that cause them to be extra sensitive. But for us, it's basically the same concept as long-term memory for us.
Okay.
One of the ways that they think this long-term sensitization happens in these snails involves epigenetics. So epigenetics are inherited changes in your DNA, but they don't change your underlying main DNA sequence.
Okay.
They are things that add on or sort of change little bits of your DNA.
Is that like over time?
Yeah.
Is that like nurture then, as opposed to that's
Yeah.
like the nurture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
So
it's environment.
It's a bit of both, yeah. So
Yeah.
epigenetics can be caused by environment, lifestyle, your age, trauma in your life, things like that.
Yeah.
So you
So
can
where-
change your own DNA.
No,
No.
so like DNA is inherited. You
Yeah.
can never change that. Epigenetics are changes that happen to your DNA.
Yeah.
To do with your environment.
But it is also inherited.
Say it again.
You can inherit epigenetic changes.
Okay.
But you also
But you can
get,
also not inherit
yeah.
them.
But like you can
you can
accumulate
get
them.
Yeah.
And they are reversible, which normal mutations in your DNA is not.
Okay.
Um,
And mutations are things that would like cause disease and stuff.
So like cancer.
yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So then another thing that they think might be involved in this is then what's called a non-coding RNA. So have you heard of RNA before?
Yeah. It's
No.
like DNA.
Yeah,
It's not.
so when
Oh
you're...
wait, maybe I do remember that.
That's another Eld's school
Biology
science
thing.
Good old days in school science.
So
Back in school science.
there are 3 major components that are essential to life, and these are DNA, RNA, and proteins.
Okay.
So what happens to your genetic information in a cell is you start with DNA, this then releases RNA, and then the RNA then produces proteins. So what happens really, so your DNA is kind of like the blueprint of what's going to happen. Your RNA is a photocopy of the DNA, and then that can then code for proteins to be made. So in a way, RNA sort of...
Is it like the instructions for the protein?
So DNA is the instructions for the RNA,
Okay.
which then gives instructions to make the proteins.
Okay.
Yeah. So RNA sort of expands how much protein your DNA can make.
Okay.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So then there's 2 types of RNA. So there's coding RNA and non-coding RNA. And non-coding RNA is RNA that's not translated into a protein. It's just hanging out.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So it doesn't really have a purpose.
It does have lots of purposes.
But just not that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll talk about how they trained these sea slugs. So what they would do is they would implant 2 wires into their tails on either side, and then they would give them 24 hours to just chill out in their little aquariums and just hang out and get acclimatized and recover from their little mini procedure. And then what they do is they check that these sea slugs actually have a natural reflex in the first place. So what they do is they get a soft, flexible probe, and they poke them in their little siphon, which is this little tubey thing that comes out between their gills on their back.
Okay.
By the way, these animals are fucking freaky.
It all sounds real dirty. Like
And they're
they
poking
poked
them.
them in their siphon.
And they
on a
would-
probe.
These animals just in general are weird models. I've never read a paper that uses these animals before.
We should get a picture of them on the blog.
Yeah, find a good one.
Yeah,
They're,
I'd like to see
they're
what
quite
they look
pretty. They're just a bit weird. Anyway, so then what should happen is when they poke them, this siphon retracts into their body. and so they time how long this happens for. So they can check that they've actually got this reflex.
And like a siphon withdrawing sounds like something else.
And then they would train them. So then this is when they would deliver tail shocks that were delivered at 20-minute intervals. So off the podcast, which because it will be cut out, Silent Demalza, we were talking about it, and we think that this is a way to sensitize them to...
What, like when they synthesize them, what's that to?
Sensitize.
Yeah. What's that to?
So basically, once they've been sensitized,
yeah.
whenever they then poke their siphon again, their siphon should stay in for longer.
Okay.
So I think what this is
yeah, why?
you know, I was saying how with memory, theoretically we think that the connections between the neurons are a certain way that keeps the memory there.
Yeah.
I think this sensitization sort of forces that to happen.
So it's like, is it kind of like if you're burned, like if you are a child and you go up and like try and like put out a candle with your fingers, you learn.
No.
So is it kind of an involuntary memory?
So I've got it all here of what the actual memory is that they're testing, but we'll go towards that at the end.
Okay.
Because that's what's confusing about this paper, because they do say memory and whatever in this, and even for me, because I don't do memory is a really complicated field, so if you're not in memory, it's really difficult. So anyway, so they do 2 rounds 24 hours apart, so they do 2 days worth of training. And they do...
What do they train them to do?
So the training is the tail shocks. So they're
okay.
not really training in the classical sense that we know as training, where you like get them to learn to do something.
Yeah.
Their training is this shocking, which is creating this sensitization.
Okay.
So they did these 2 rounds of shocking, 24 hours apart, so 2 days, and they would do 5 tail shocks at 20-minute intervals. And these 5 tail shocks were 1 second each, with 2 seconds in between, and they would train them 3 times each time. So they're being shocked a lot. And I did read a newspaper article where the guy who does this was like, it doesn't hurt them, blah yada yada, but you're still giving them like 100 shocks to the tail over a space of 2 days.
I'm sure there'll be some vegans who'll have issues with it.
Also, can slugs see? Is there any like association between like them knowing that the prod is coming?
Yes? I don't know.
But didn't you say that things were attached to their tails anyway? Did they stay in their tails?
Yeah.
So then they wouldn't see something coming when it was happening.
Well, no, because slugs have eyes that can...
Do they or is that a cartoon? You're thinking of like SpongeBob SquarePants and the little snail
But
guy
if
that's
they
head's
Or
like
the
big
slugs
eyes
in my
on.
garden that have the things that come
Yeah,
in.
no, they definitely
But
have
still,
eyes.
if it was something that was continuously attached to their tail and they just like zap it, they
but
wouldn't
they
know
poke
it was
them.
coming.
They poke them. But then I guess if they come from behind, they're not going to see the little pokey thing coming. I don't know actually, Demalza. Do slugs have eyes? Okay. We'll get back to you on that. Slugs can see.
Can they see 360 degrees?
Affirmative.
We'll come back to that. Affirmative.
Let's go to the result.
Okay.
So, can they do their eyes turn around? Okay, they have a lot of eyes. Ew. That's so gross. My best friend, she absolutely hates slugs. Like, she's usually a really calm and collected person, but I've never seen someone freak out the way they do when they see slugs. And she really hates anything that's that shape, so she hates caterpillars and millipedes. And there was one time when we used to have a sofa outside our house because the owners before just left it there. So we used to chill out on that sofa. And then one time she looked on the sofa and there was this fluffy thing on it. So she picked it up and was like, what's this? And then threw it on the floor. And then we looked back at it 5 minutes later and we realised it was a caterpillar. And this girl like freaked the fuck out. She started like screaming, ran up 2 flights of stairs to our living room and just stripped off.
Oh god.
She just could not deal with the fact that she touched the caterpillar.
Was that Lucy?
Yeah. Like her trousers came straight off. She just couldn't deal with it. Yeah, because you've met her. She's a really like cool and collected person.
She seems very chilled out.
Yeah. Right. Results.
Okay.
So.
Looking forward to this bit.
So they would generate the RNA for this memory transfer. So what they would do is they would do the training that we talked about.
Yep.
And what this means is, so let me read the sentence because this now explains what the sensitization does.
Okay.
So the training produced clear long-term sensitization as indicated by the significant enhancement of the siphon withdrawal reflex 24 hours after the 2nd day of training.
Okay.
So basically what that sensitization does is it makes them retract their siphon for longer when you probe it again.
Okay.
About 48 hours after the test, RNA was extracted from their central nervous system from control and trained animals. So the control animals weren't going through the sensitization training thing.
Yeah.
This RNA was then injected into naive animals, so animals that hadn't gone through any of this. And then they measured this reflex in these recipient animals 24 hours after the injection. What they found was that in the animals that received RNA from the trained animals, their reflex was significantly longer than the animals that had received RNA from animals that hadn't been trained.
Oh. And did they test the reflex in the end animals before they put the RNA in them?
What's the end animals?
So they're like
The
guinea
ones
pig
that they
guys.
injected.
Oh, the recipients.
Yeah.
They would have been tested before and after as well.
Okay.
And
So there was definitely a difference between.
yeah, and actually with that, they saw that the animals that had been injected with RNA from the trained donors, their before and after was different, whereas it wasn't for the others.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Therefore, the RNA from these sensitized or trained animals appeared to then enhance the reflex in these recipient slugs. I find it really confusing that they call them snails, by the way, because when you Google what an aplysia is, they say sea slugs. But throughout this whole paper, they call them snails, so I don't know.
Papers.
Yeah. I don't know if it's... I mean, they're probably right because they're the guys that are experiencing
Yeah.
this, but I find it really weird.
Do they have a shell?
No,
Well, then they're a slug.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, so then number 2 is that, you know, we talked about how we think epigenetics might have something to do with this.
Yeah.
So what they looked at is a specific epigenetic mutation called DNA methylation. And this just means there's a compound called a methyl group, and that gets added onto the DNA.
Yeah.
So they basically did this whole same thing again, but they added a drug
Okay.
that sort of inhibited this methylation, so it blocked it. And what they found was it's basically the same thing that they found. So when they blocked it, their sensitization wasn't affected, but in the ones where it wasn't blocked, their reflex had increased again.
So are they just kind of like further confirming with that
Exactly.
that it had happened?
And that is pretty much what every molecular or animal science paper does. They're just every experiment and every result is confirming what they have already seen.
Okay. So they're giving this drug to the recipients who've received the DNA from the people that were tested, or they're giving this to the people who were slugs that were tested?
People.
I love it, they become people.
Animals are people too.
They are.
So they would give it to the one that was receiving.
Okay.
They would receive it at the same time as they were receiving the RNA from the original slugs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's like another group with different factors.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So then the next part is they then took this to cell culture. So what they now did is they took neurons from the slugs, snails, whatever, alopecia, no.
Maybe we are talking about people now.
From the aplysia, and they grew them in a dish.
Okay.
And then what they did is they got the RNA from the sensitized and the non-sensitized animals, and they would treat the cells with the RNA. So basically, they just stick the RNA in the same dish as the cells and allow the cells to grow with this RNA and see how that affects it. And these are sensory neurons. So you have two types of neurons. You have sensory neurons and motor neurons. Motor neurons are to do with your movement, and sensory neurons are your senses.
Okay.
So when these sensory neurons were treated with the RNA from the trained and untrained donors, they did this for 24 hours, and then they looked at the currents within the cells, so how these cells would shoot off currents and get excited, which is what normally happens when you're passing messages along. And basically these ones that had been treated with the RNA from the sensitized animals, they were a lot more excitatory than the ones from the animals that hadn't been trained.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But is that just like they're doing things but they don't know what? Like it has a
I mean-
reaction but they don't know if it's a relevant reaction?
Yeah, for sure. Like they don't. There is a bit that comes up where they say, you know, the interpretation of their data could have been hugely big for what it is.
How big was the sample size? Because do slugs vary as much as humans do? Because could you just
They,
not have
if you're doing
scarce-
animal testing, you'll always do it on a genetically. No. Okay. So
Does that throw a bit of a curveball in?
Yeah, so Sana Demalza just informed us that these slugs are wild, whereas normally if you're doing animal testing, they've been genetically modified in a way that you know exactly what's going on with that animal. So then every animal should be the same.
Okay.
But that's interesting, actually. I didn't know that. Maybe next time I should read my paper better.
So does them being wild in some ways make like the research more realistic, but then in other ways not as good because it's not like
There's more
Yeah.
influence of
there's more factors.
external factors.
Yeah, you're right. So it is more naturalistic, but there's no way that you can say this is exactly what's happening.
Okay.
Because now you've introduced all these other
Yeah,
factors that could have affected. I mean, one slug could have had a much more traumatic life than another slug.
Yeah.
May have gone through
So
adversity.
they would
Yeah.
have more excitable cells
He
already.
might have been
Yeah.
bullied.
Like one slug,
Socioeconomic factors.
exactly. Childhood trauma.
Low education.
Yeah. Poor nutrition. You never know.
No, you never know.
So then the last bit of results that I'm going to talk to you about is they then did this with the motor neurons and they didn't see the same thing.
Okay.
So this is specific to the sensory neurons.
Okay. So would that be like saying with motor neurons more like, say if you had a reflex that like remembered something,
Mm-hmm.
so that wouldn't happen?
What?
Because you know, like, your motor neurons are like movements.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, how do they remember things if it's a memory?
So this goes back to the engram thing we were talking about.
Okay.
So engrams are in that part of the neuron, and it's just the way that the neurons are sending messages to each other that's different.
Okay.
And that's what we think memory is. So it's not a case of how the memories are being stored in each of these different types of neurons. At the moment, the theory is that it's the connections that matter.
Okay.
Okay. But would it be a motor neuron if during the experiment the slug was moving?
You're just throwing in all these motor neurons there.
But I just mean I want to like, I don't
Motor
know.
neuron, wouldn't that be if that's more learning?
No, but I mean,
But I just don't know how they remember things, because like, how do you like remember a movement or something, do you know?
There's different ways of storing memories, isn't there?
I mean, everything's theoretical.
Yeah.
We don't know. That's the
Okay.
answer. Memory, we don't know when it comes to memory. So papers like this, they're still trying to figure out what is going on. And they're trying to come up with this new theory from what already exists. But even this theory that already exists, we don't know
Okay.
if that's a
Okay.
thing. So to
So
answer
it's
your
just
question,
a lot of like shooting in the dark type of thing.
it's very aimed shooting in the dark.
Science there, okay.
If we were all shooting in the dark, these guys would not have any money to do any science.
Okay.
Right, so they have two main findings.
Mm-hmm.
One, RNA is critical for the engram, which is something that is not widely thought at the moment. And number two, it requires this DNA methylation, so this epigenetics.
Okay.
One of the things that they've said is that, so one criticism with this paper is that actually this isn't new. What they've shown here is not new at all.
Okay.
It's actually been shown decades and decades ago. But what they're saying is that previous papers, they're no good because their methods have always been a bit unclear. And also, epigenetics wasn't a thing 40 years ago.
Okay. So they think epigenetics is a big factor in
Yeah.
it.
But then, so what these guys are saying, that this sensitization training that they've used, it's a really well validated training where the behavioral and the cellular changes are really well documented. So they're saying, look, even though it's been shown before, ours is better because we can show you, we know for sure that this is something that should be like this.
Okay.
So their data is saying that this essential component of this engram for long-term memory, which this again threw me off because they go from keep calling it long-term sensitization to now calling it long-term memory again.
Okay.
In aplysia, can be transferred to untrained animals or to neurons via RNA. So this is what they're saying is their big finding.
So is RNA like a carrier for
Potentially,
the
yeah.
things?
Yeah. The main conclusion from these authors and what they hypothesize or think is happening right now, it's these RNA-induced epigenetic changes that is causing the sensitization in the neurons of animals that have received it. And this is now a very different idea from what memory is already accepted to be, which is a specific pattern of connections between cells.
Okay.
And this specific pattern is something that you would never be able to inject into an animal and test. Whereas this RNA thing, you can.
Okay. So is it a bit convenient for them that you can't test the other one?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So are they hypothesizing
Uh-huh.
that RNA stores memory then?
They're saying that's one of the ways that it could be happening.
Okay. That's a big discovery, or for them to
Claim.
claim.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so this is the thing, we keep saying memory, and what we think of memory is a certain thing, right? Like we think of memory as something that you've learned or experienced, and it's an experience that you can recall. Whereas for them, this is not really what we consider to be it's widely considered to be memory, but it is memory in terms of their field. So, because this is what thing, is this really memory? Because really it's a reflex. These animals have this reflex that they withdraw this siphon, and is that even a memory? Because it's not really connected to anything. And actually, for me as well, I kept looking back through this paper, and I kept having to look back at the methods to see if I'd missed something, because I was like, well, surely there must be something in the room that's showing them something's about to happen, or but that's not it, because that's what we consider memory to be widely, but that's not.
What confused me about the sensitization, because I was like, why isn't there something that they're like associating with that? Do you know, that kind of way?
Yeah, and this is sort of the problem with the media.
Is it not something completely different though? Is it not just like sensory awareness, in the sense that like it's not a memory, a certain thing that we feel, or the things that like we're like being shocked isn't necessarily a memory, it's more just like a sense.
So a reaction or a
reflex.
reflex.
I did read his rebuttal to someone saying it's a reflex. And he was saying this sensitization, what he describes it as, is a non-associative learning or memory. So that means it's not stimulus specific. So the memory that we widely think of is stimulus specific, right? Yeah. So we think, so say we've learned something hurts. So we'll get a burn and we'll be like, oh, that hurts, that's a stimulus. But this one isn't. So what this is similar to is habituation, is what he's calling it. So it's the same as
to habits.
Yeah. So the example he uses, which I quite liked, is you wear a watch. After a while, you forget that watch is there, because you're now used to this watch is there, and that is a form of memory, because you know that the watch is there. But you're just used to it, and that is what he's saying that this is. So it's not the traditional definition of memory that the wider public know, and actually people even not in his field. What he's saying is they've transferred a learning induced enhancement of a reflex, not what we think of as a memory. So this is a very specific and not what. So when all these media runs off with all these headlines saying they've transferred memory, which is because actually the way I found this paper was through a newspaper article where they said they've transferred memories. So I got pretty excited too when I read that, and I was like, that is fucking cool. But it's really not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of a letdown.
But still, I think it stands for something that they can give slugs that were completely untrained the RNA of a trained slug, and they'll react in the same way.
Because even if it's not a memory, it's still something else that they moved from like one to the other.
And the thing is, it's interesting because usually in papers at the end they'll sort of try and take it back to human level, but they don't do that with this. So they're not like reaching. No, but in in his newspaper articles he does say that we can do this in humans and transfer memories. But I mean, he doesn't put that in here, but in the media he's saying it. And that is, I think that was in an actual quote from him. Yeah, that we could maybe do this in humans.
That's brave.
Yeah. I think this guy is just, I don't know. But you know what? Maybe we're sitting here like, yeah, he's crazy, but
you never know.
You never know.
And what would stop him from just going ahead and trying it in humans? Is there like ethical barriers?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we can't do this right now.
Okay.
Like you couldn't stick a probe in a human siphon.
You can't sit there and give them. But some people do it for fun anyway. You can just get those people.
I mean, whatever you're into.
And yeah, you wouldn't get the approval to like electrically shock humans for 2 days in a row.
Yeah, but they do that on Big Brother to people for like. No,
that's true. They do.
What would be our reflex though? No, maybe they could do it if they dip a guy's balls in cold water and see what happens. Okay.
Or Silent Mouse just tried to poke Curie between the eyes. That got a pretty good reaction.
Okay, before I was rudely attacked. What I was saying is maybe we could do it like if you dip a guy's balls in ice cold water and watch them retract. Maybe that'll be it. Or like no, because that's too much of an actual reflex rather than a thing. Okay.
So would you just need something that like would make you tense or something?
Make people wear watches, like you said.
So yeah, it is interesting. There's a blog post that I'm sure Jamalza could link on our blog. Which you can see there's a discussion. There's quite a good discussion in the comments about this paper where the PI of this group, he goes on and starts commenting, like talking back to people. And he gets quite sassy in some of them, and I quite enjoy it. Yeah, he gets quite sassy.
I love a bit of sass
Yeah.
on the internet.
Are scientists generally very sassy on the internet?
No.
No, not really.
Okay.
That's why it's so special when it does happen.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of that?
It was really interesting. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was cool.
From your perspective, how do you think this can then apply to us?
To people.
Yeah.
I don't know, because the whole synthesizing thing.
Sensitization.
Why can't I remember that word?
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, the sensitization thing kind of confuses me, so I don't really know how it would get to humans.
Could it be used as like a brainwashing tool?
That's what I said.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Did you say that just there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
When
But do
I
you
went
think
into
that
my
would-
Project Monolith thing.
Do you think that would be the only purpose, like, of being able to do that to humans, to brainwash them?
I mean,
like, why else would you want to transfer memories from one person?
But the purpose is this was it to prove that that's what memory is stored as?
yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's
okay.
not really his
To do anything. It's
his
to-
whole thing of saying we could maybe do this in humans is just, I don't know. I feel
him being
like,
a crazy scientist.
Yeah, I feel like he's just being dramatic for the media.
Okay.
Yeah.
And trying to blow up his story.
I guess it's not so much memories, because like you create your own personal memories, as like you could like train a human who hasn't been exposed to certain conditions to be able to deal with conditions
Yeah.
by putting it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The
that's
text
an
under.
interesting
Yeah.
way.
Oh, we're going into some Black Mirror shit now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So something like
like that episode.
Handmaid's Tale, where like
Oh.
in years to come, these people don't want to have to deal with traumatizing events, or I don't know, say like a play or something. I don't know. And then you train people who are lower down, I don't know, the like ebbs of society. Like how to like, is that even a word?
Yeah. We all get what you mean.
You like put the like urchins under all this.
Go back to Shakespeare.
You put them under all the like stressful and horrible conditions, and then take the memories on how they like eventually learned how to deal with all this like traumatic stress, and then just give that
To rich
memory
people.
to rich people.
So rich people never have to deal with trauma.
Yeah.
Wait, so but would they just be like more well equipped to deal with it than?
No, but they still just wouldn't have to deal with it, right? Because they would be more well equipped, but because
Yeah.
they're not going to then experience the trauma in the first place.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know
Or
what
with
I mean?
all this like designer baby shit, they could do designer
Designer memories.
designer memories that like
Ooh,
the
yeah.
baby's born with, who's really well equipped to deal
We're
with.
just going to end up with a whole new generation of sociopaths and psychopaths. They're all
Yeah.
going to be murderers.
Like they end up with no empathy, or they don't
Yeah.
get stressed about anything.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Right, I need a loo break.
Okay.
Try making another jingle.
Okay, I decided to choose a paper that was a bit applicable to my life at the moment. Because I was explaining to Curie earlier on, I really like when sciencey things and like research and stuff that's going on in my life
Yeah.
collide, or just things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So this paper is a bit of that. So it's currently the summer season, and what is something that plagues people particularly a lot in the summer season?
Hay fever.
I've only had it
Indeed.
for one day this summer.
Well done, you.
I have chronic hay fever.
You have it all year round.
Yeah, all year round.
You just, it's not hay fever. You're just allergic to everything. But this is a bit of
not
this
hay
paper
fever.
as well.
Were
So
you
this-
breastfed as a child?
No. And we
Ah.
were, yeah, okay.
That's
Wait,
why
wait, you're spoilers. Would
Oh,
you
sorry.
stop?
Oh shit, sorry.
Yeah.
I
fuck's
didn't
sake.
know.
Yeah, well, anyway. I told you earlier on what this paper was about.
You didn't tell me there was breastfeeding involved.
Well, it's got microbiota.
That's
the-
got nothing to do with boobs.
Fuck's sake. Wrecking my balls. Okay. Well, I'll just go for the title of this paper. So yeah, I like when and as well I think things are more relatable to people when it might be something that's like
In
they're-
their life.
they're experiencing at this
Rather than
period in time.
Rather than siphons and sea slugs.
But these ones are pretty, so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Unlike you.
bitch. Anyway, I also chose this paper because it's about allergies, which you have a lot of, and they mention food allergy, which gluten intolerance, gluten
Yes.
allergy. You're celiac.
Yeah. It's an
Yeah.
allergy.
So that's
Yeah.
the gluten allergy. Yeah, yeah.
I have.
Shh. So.
It's because you said she was ugly.
Okay.
I can't eat lots of lactose.
Me neither.
That's because you're Asian.
But Koreans love cheese.
Yeah, it's weird.
Koreans put
You guys
cheese on
really
everything.
do love cheese.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
Korea and I was like, wow, so much cheese here.
Yeah, but it's not like nice cheese.
It's like white cheese.
It's the
It
plastic
doesn't have a lot
stuff.
of flavour.
But it's great. Have a spicy ramen with a slice of plastic cheese in there, and it's great.
Interesting.
Sounds wrong. Okay, so.
Rude.
Okay, so back to the allergies.
Yeah.
So my paper is called Temporal and Long-Term Gut Microbiota Variation in Allergic Disease, a prospective study from infancy to school age. Yes, Curie.
Allergic disease.
Yeah, so when they say allergic disease, they're referring to all IgE allergic diseases.
I did not know that it was allergic disease.
Yeah, so like hay fever, eczema, asthma, and food allergies are all mediated by the same antibody, which is IgE. There's different types of IgE, so this is why some people will have hay fever, but they won't have eczema. Some people have, you don't have to have all of these things.
I see.
So different IgEs will be associated with different allergies, but all of the diseases in a group are all mediated by IgEs.
What's
And
an
I
IgE?
So an IgE, have you heard of an antibody?
Yeah.
Yeah, so an IgE is an antibody.
Okay.
So what happens is when you're exposed to something, like when you're born, you're exposed to something for the first time. So Kate, for instance, in your lifetime, when you were exposed to dust,
Yeah.
cat hair, dog hair,
Yeah.
what else are you allergic
Wait,
to?
how do you live in
Feathers.
your house?
Feathers,
yeah.
dander, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Dander,
Everything.
dust, all
She's
that
on.
stuff.
She's on like lifelong antihistamines. Really
Like
strong ones.
prescription ones.
Jeez. This is what I'm gonna be like when I have a kid. If they're allergic to dogs, I'm gonna be like, fuck you.
We're getting a dog.
You can be on drugs. So I'm gonna
The
get a
thing
dog.
is though, all the allergy tests I've had said I'm really allergic to like cats and dogs, but I'm actually not allergic to the dog.
Oh.
Like she sleeps in my bed and I'm fine.
That's because our dog is hypoallergenic.
She's not actually.
She
just doesn't.
is.
She doesn't shed.
She's a designer dog. Yeah.
But she still has hair. Like.
Yeah. So anyway, back to IgE. So when you're first exposed to these things, you have like these immune cells that travel around your body, and they notice things that are foreign. So you would ingest these you'd ingest like say a cat hair would go down into your esophagus.
Yeah.
And then your antibody will be or your immune cell will be traveling around, and it would come across this cat hair, and specifically molecules that the cat hair would have on them called allergens. So they're things that you would be allergic to.
Yeah.
And it's exposed to this allergen on the cat hair, and it produces an antibody, and it would be an IgE antibody. So the first time you're exposed to it, nothing happens because you're just forming these antibodies. But then the antibodies become widespread and travel around your blood in quite small amounts. But what they're doing is they're waiting for you to be exposed to that allergen again. The next time you're exposed to that allergen is when the shit goes down.
One of my friends, she's allergic to loads of fruit, but it's really sad because she really likes fruit.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is sad.
So she's allergic to like kiwis and apples and different types of melons and certain oranges and blah blah blah. But she really likes fruit.
It's a sad time.
It's very sad.
Does she ever just eat it and it's like fuck it?
I don't know.
Well, no, because I know I'm not an expert on allergy, but
Allergy
like
and
allergies, like,
intolerance is different.
Yeah, an intolerance, you can eat it, it's just not going to make you feel good. An allergy, you could get anaphylaxis and die.
Yeah. Do you know which she has?
She has an allergy. Yeah. So she gets.
Does she
Okay.
carry an EpiPen?
No, because she's not allergic to the point where she's going to go into anaphylaxis.
Okay.
Imagine if you were just like, oh, it's grand, and had your EpiPen. Just like really quickly ate a load of fruit and we're like, fine.
Living life on the edge.
Yeah.
So this study is trying to elucidate some of the mechanisms, and they think that your
What does elucidate mean?
means find out.
Okay.
Find out some of the mechanisms by which this might be happening.
Okay.
And they think that your gut microbiota, which is the thing that I focus on in my PhD, might be involved. So just as a little brief summary, because my dear sister here has listened to one podcast out of 7, your gut microbiota.
I know what the gut microbiota are.
Shh.
No, but I know I haven't listened to that many episodes, but that's also
She
part
listens
of
to you.
That's also yeah, and that's
Have I
also
spoken to you about this before?
yes, and that's also part of
And
my
it's all you
job.
talk about.
True, yeah.
You've dedicated the next 4 years of your life to it.
That's not part of your job.
It is in like
Your job.
yeah, that's the
I know, yeah, but I didn't really know you understood it, like.
Anyway, I'd be a bit worried if I didn't understand my job.
Okay, I was just giving a little bit of an intro.
I wonder how different this podcast would have been if we did this when you first moved here compared to now 4 weeks later.
I don't think it would have been that different.
Why, are you trying to imply the tensions are running high? Is that what you're trying to do, Curie?
It's just, I've never seen your mean sister side until today.
I'm not that mean, am I?
No, don't hit me.
No, you're not. No, actually not. But
Um,
Kate's screaming for help with her eyes right now.
Back to the paper. This paper was looking specifically at, this was actually a spin-off of a larger study. I know I tend to do this a lot, but I actually have a reason for not using the main study. Because the main study was actually a randomized control trial where they followed all these children that were born, and at 4 months they got their mothers to start feeding them either normal baby cereal or a baby cereal with a probiotic in it. So probiotics are live bacterial strains that you can take that improve the composition of your gut microbiota and have like health benefits. So they gave half the kids just regular cereal and half the kids cereal with probiotics in it, and they wanted to see how that affected incidence of eczema.
oh,
Yeah.
is probiotics all fermented food?
No, the
Have
reason why
probiotics?
they're thought to be good is because they either have probiotics or else they feed the bacteria you already have.
Okay.
So all fermented foods would thought to be thought to be either prebiotic or probiotic. Prebiotic being things that feed what you already have. But not all probiotics are fermented.
Okay.
So they can be just live bacterial strains.
Where do they get them from if they're not fermented?
They are cultured. So like you grow bacteria and then
Okay.
you would introduce them into foods is how I think. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Anybody know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's how, yeah.
No? Oh, neither was I, to be honest.
Oh, great. Wonderful. We need to get a nutrition fact checker that's as good as Demel's at, because I feel like she's got your back with all the neuroscience stuff. So yeah, the specific aim of this study. Oh yeah, so it was a spin-off from the larger study. But the reason I chose this one was because this is not randomized control trial. So that's like the highest tier of evidence, because they're going to give one group of people one thing and the other group of people the other thing and be able to directly compare them. What they did here was they kind of did a small study within that study where they just followed all of the children that didn't get the probiotics for a bit longer. So they got samples from them at 4, 6, 13 months and then 8 years, and saw what happened to them, who developed allergic disease and who didn't.
Okay.
And then they compared all their samples to see if there was any differences.
Is the samples poo?
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason why I thought this was more interesting was because they don't follow just one of my allergies, which is eczema. They follow pretty much all of them. So eczema, hay fever, food allergy, asthma, and you have most of them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, we're getting a good scope.
Sickly
Yeah.
people.
We're getting a good scope of all the
Our whole
allergies.
family's like that, except for Jack.
They followed this group of people for 8 years, got their poo samples, and then they followed them up to see what diagnoses they got. And then they compared their poo samples to see what was going on and if there was any specific compositions that were associated with the kids that got the allergies, even like single bacteria that the kids had more of who got the allergies, or what was going on. So what happened was they had 93 children. So none of these kids got the probiotics. They were just followed up to see what happened. They got the stool samples at 4, 6, 13 months and 8 years. Diagnosis was by the parents reported any symptoms that they had, and these included like wheeze, rashes. Yeah.
How do you get an 8-year-old to give you their poo?
Their parents reported symptoms, but then at 8 years they did a more thorough diagnosis of their allergic symptoms.
Oh, so maybe they did a stool sample.
Yeah, I'd say that's what they did, because they got to a pediatrician to examine them, and they did skin prick tests to make sure they were definitely had these allergic diseases. So yeah, I'd say that's probably where they got the poo sample. In terms of results, with the kids they followed 93 kids. 21 of the children got diagnosed with an IgE associated allergic disease, while 72 of them had no disease. 20 children were sensitized to airborne allergens. So that's the things like dust, pollen, that type of thing. So they would have had
Hair?
asthma or hay fever. Yeah, everything. 13 of the children had food allergens, and 14 had eczema, 14 had allergic rhinitis, 4 had asthma, and 5 had food allergy. So if you were to do the math, this adds up to more than 21. So the thing I thought was really sad, that only 2 children had a single allergic disease. All the rest of them had several. Isn't that sad?
That's a bit shit.
This is a sign of the times. Isn't it that all of these, like asthma and hay fever and stuff, they're quite new things, aren't
But
they?
this is what this paper is getting at, because they think that back in the day when we all used to play in the dirt, I think I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Play in the dirt and just have a good time, that we were exposed to all these different bacteria. And how, when we're young, how our microbiota grows is environmental. So things that we're just exposed to. So if you eat dirt, there might be bacteria in there that will then go down into your gut and colonize your gut, and that could be a good thing. Obviously, it exposes you to pathogenic bacteria as well, which are things that are going to make you sick. But the more diverse and different good bacteria you have, the least likely it is that these pathogenic bacteria are able to take hold and colonize your gut and cause disease.
Okay.
So actually it was a good thing that we weren't as clean. So they thought that when society developed and we got way more hygienic and this type of thing, it was actually a negative thing for this type of allergic disease, because we were exposed to less diverse bacteria. So we weren't able to fight off all of the pathogens, basically. And specifically with allergic disease, they think that there's this window when you're born between 0 and 3 years of age when your microbiota is forming, and then when you hit 3 years of age, it's relatively stable for the rest of your life in comparison to how dynamic it is during 0 and 3 years of age. So anything you're exposed to, and they call this the window of opportunity. So the more things you're exposed to during this window of opportunity, the better. But because we're way more hygienic,
It's less.
when you're in this 0 to 3 years of age, you're exposed to less. So that's why more people are developing allergic
So they
disease.
should let all the babies play in the dirt, basically.
Yeah.
And you should be fueling them with like prebiotics and probiotics from a young age.
Yes and no. There's natural pre and probiotics. So breastfeeding, there's prebiotics in milk, in breast milk. That's the only source of those prebiotics we're going to get. And there's actually specific strains of bacteria that exist in your infant gut that have evolved to feed specifically off these prebiotic compounds in milk. So they're the only, you can only get it from breast milk, and these are only found in the infant gut. So that's like a really strong example of how important breastfeeding and your gut bacteria are. So they've shown that if you aren't breastfeed, this specific strain doesn't thrive, and this can lead to health consequences in the future.
So it's Mags' fault that we have all the allergies.
Don't tell her that. She'll be very upset.
I know.
I wasn't breastfed, and I've no.
I
True.
wasn't breastfed a lot.
Oh yeah. But this is a thing in countries where breastfeeding isn't promoted, which Ireland is kind of one. It wasn't really that promoted. Now it's way more breast is best, etc. And it definitely is, but just in some countries it just wasn't promoted, and that might be another reason why nowadays people have more allergies. And also, so there's different reasons why in different countries it's not promoted. So in some countries it's actually seen as, it was seen as a wealth status to not breastfeed. So only the poorer classes needed to breastfeed.
That was the actual maid, right? That would always just breastfeed.
Yeah.
What were they called?
Wet nurse.
Wet nurse, yeah.
What? How do they produce
It was
the
like
milk?
a pregnant woman that they hired.
A woman. It used to be usually, because it was way back in the day, so there's really high infant mortality rates.
Yeah.
So loads of babies used to die. So if a wealthy woman had a baby, she'd go and find someone whose baby had just died and get them to nurse
But
the
also,
child.
it's supply and demand. If you
keep breastfeeding, it keeps
it will
going.
keep producing milk.
Yeah.
I did see a show once as well about these 2 lesbians, and they had a baby, and both of them wanted to breastfeed it. So the one that didn't physically have the baby took loads of hormones that made her produce breast milk, and then she was able to.
I really want to taste breast milk.
Ew, Curie.
Why?
I'm really curious as well.
Yeah.
I probably would taste it if someone
it's
gave
just
it to me.
Because I've now had 2 opportunities to try breast milk, and both of them forgot to give me some.
I'd like to try my own.
Forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, air quotes.
But I
I'm
just
silent
because
about
Someone else's.
I've had it, it's not very nice, but super super sweet.
Yeah, I think it's quite high in sugar.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is that sweet, because
You
basically
talk like a woman who has tasted it.
no, I actually haven't. This is something we talked about in college in my undergrad. So they were saying about how all the companies that make baby formula add sweetener to it, but breast milk isn't naturally sweet, so they're conditioning people to be addicted to sugar from a really young age, so they're creating lifelong consumers to sugar.
That's Nestle, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nestle bought one of the biggest baby formula companies in Ireland recently, and it was like shocking that it's like or was it a pharmacy company that bought it? I can't remember.
I know Nestle are like, they were under some allegation of doing that, of like cultivating the future consumers to be addicted to sugar, because obviously they sell sugar in all their products.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna
pretty sure it was
need
in South America though.
We're going to need a Kate's conspiracy corner for this blog post.
Yeah, I think we are. You're full of them. Kate loves a good food industry conspiracy.
There's a lot of them though.
Because as a baker, Kate's very dedicated to high quality ingredients.
Well, maybe it's synthetic sweeteners then that they condition them to want.
Like these would be natural.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
And like
breast
milk
milk's-
is naturally high in sugar, like even cow's milk.
Yeah.
Breast milk's
quite a
really
lot of
high in
sugar.
glucose.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it would be
Well, then obviously it must be artificial
Lactose.
ones.
fructose.
Galactose.
I don't know.
Toast.
One of the toasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, another thing that they think was increasing allergic disease is mode of delivery, like so mode of birth. So if you have a natural delivery, when you pass through the vaginal canal, you get loads of bacteria all over you, and they go in your mouth and in your eyes and up your nose and in your ears and in every possible entry port to your body. And
Like your siphon.
yeah, they love getting in your siphon. So yeah, and then they colonize. But if you're born by cesarean, you don't pass through the vaginal canal, so you don't get all this. So that's another reason why babies born by cesarean are seen to be a bit immunocompromised.
You know what?
Wow.
I should be all of these. I should have loads of allergies then.
Were you born by
I
cesarean?
was a cesarean baby, and I wasn't very much breastfed or at all. I'm not sure if I was at all.
Been playing around in the muck loads then.
To be fair, I did play around in the mud quite a lot, and I used to play outside a lot.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
And they do make the point that these type of allergies also vary with age. So you can grow out of eczema and things, but they just think that one of the things involved in the development of them from the beginning is your gut microbiota and the different factors that influence how it develops. So they had a look at the gut microbiota in the poo of the allergic children to the poo of the non-allergic children. And they found that if you compared the allergic and the non-allergic, there was an underrepresentation of certain bacterial species in the allergic children in comparison to the non-allergic children. And these were both at the moment at 8 years when you compared them. So this is called temporal. That's right then and there. But also they were, where's that word gone? Long-term.
I thought it was going to be a really complicated science word.
So they were temporal, but they also were long term. So when they compared the poos from 4, 6 and 13 months, the kids that went on to develop allergic disease at all of these time points had different underrepresented species compared to the non-allergic kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And these bacteria were, and this is where it all gets a bit confusing. Bacteria are many and have really mind-numbingly confusing names.
Okay.
So we
Gonna
have
be like Cipraliblacoccus.
one of them is coccus. Yeah. So we have
Cockle.
Staphylococcus.
Bacteroides, Prevotella, and Coprococcus.
Prevotella sounds like a freaking like
Dessert.
yogurt. Yeah.
Nice bit of Prevotella.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the
Sounds like Nutella.
the allergic kids are underrepresenting.
I feel
allergic
like
bacteria.
Prevotella could also could be a celebrity kid's name.
They go into what each of these bacteria means. But these days, in terms of the microbiota, they're moving towards looking at like the functional capacity of your microbiome as a whole. So it's very difficult because there's so many species and so many different strains, and also one strain in one person carries out a function, but that function might be carried out by a different strain in another person.
Okay.
So instead of looking at the specific species, it's moving towards just looking at the functional capacity of what you have.
So
So
what
they'll
it can
look
do.
at, and one of the methods of this is by the amount of fermenting bacteria that you have. So bacteria that ferment fibers release short chain fatty acids. So these short chain fatty acids would be the functional molecules. So they go off and do good things in your gut. They can also travel to different parts of your system. And
Are they polyphenols?
no.
No. Okay.
But polyphenols do interact with your microbiota as well. So polyphenols would come from food. So foods that you eat, usually plant-based foods that have like quite rich colour. So berries, coffee,
Chocolate?
chocolate, Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And if you just eat polyphenols, your body, your own cells can't do anything with them. You need bacteria to convert them into compounds that can actually be absorbed and used by your cells.
Okay.
So yeah, polyphenols do have a role, but not in this specific sense.
Okay.
But they would promote the health of your gut bacteria in general. So yeah, they basically, the take home from this was that allergic kids had different microbiota than non-allergic kids.
Right.
Wasn't that surprising?
Mm-hmm.
This is just a observational study, so they followed people and saw things. So definitely the results from the other study where they actually, the randomized control trial,
Yeah.
to see did it decrease the incidence of eczema, which I believe it did, but I'd have to double check that for you.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's really interesting because all these things that, you know, promote allergy,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like because we know them now, when we have children, we can make
Just
sure.
stick them in the fields.
Make sure. First of all, make sure they're delivered via the vagina. Then breastfeed them
As long
until
as
they're
possible.
6.
Oh my god, no. Please, no, that's the creepiest fucking thing.
It's so
I hate
creepy.
it. Like, I know.
And in the meantime, throw them out into the fields. And also another thing, sorry, I forgot to mention.
Maybe we should give birth in the fields.
Yeah,
That's the way
that
it
could
used
work.
to happen.
Yeah.
But wait, there was one more thing in this paper that I quite enjoyed that I forgot to mention. So when they were doing the statistics, they controlled for a few things. So these would be factors that might influence differences in the gut microbial composition between the two groups, other than just the allergic disease. So, or whether or not they developed allergic disease. So the things that they controlled for were duration of breastfeeding, because all the kids in this cohort are breastfed.
Okay, so it depends how long.
Yeah, duration of breastfeeding, so how long you're breastfed for. And exposure to furry pets.
Oh.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah.
So if you have a pet from birth,
From young, yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
be less allergic.
Yeah.
Because you
That's
get
what they think.
bacteria off the animals as well.
Yeah.
But not just bacteria, it's like you're exposed to...
Their hair.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess the bacteria. Yeah.
That, like, I follow this Instagram and he has 2 huskies and a young baby, and the huskies always lick the baby's face.
Yeah.
And I always wondered if, like, I was surprised he doesn't get much hate in his comments, because I can imagine a lot of people being like, that's so gross, you're letting your dogs lick your baby's face. But
'Cause
actually,
yeah. My dad always, I would let our dog lick my face as well, and our dad always gives out and is like, that's filthy and all this kind of stuff, but I actually think dogs have magic tongues.
But then
Yeah,
our
They
dog
do
eats...
heal things.
Yeah.
Our dog eats the cat's poo.
Yeah, well, I haven't let her lick me since she started doing that.
Yeah.
That was after I moved out.
Good for her gut health though, right?
Yeah, it must be.
Don't know about that.
don't dogs
Love
have,
it.
like, but dogs do have clean mouths, right? Because they
Yeah.
have all these other, they
have, like,
they
loads
have
of lymph-
extra enzymes and all that
lymph
shit
nodes.
that goes
Yeah.
on that kills everything.
Antibacterial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like their saliva's a
Yeah.
lot cleaner than ours.
Because I remember I was...
Well, they eat loads of crap, so maybe it is, because they'd have to be able to deal with that.
Well, exactly.
Loads of crap.
Okay, cool. Well, that's the end of my paper. What do you think?
Yeah, it was
I
good.
thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So if are then allergies such as eczema and asthma and all that, is that completely separate to food allergies? Because there's food allergies affected by your small intestine as opposed to your large intestine.
So what they're saying here is I think there's kind of specific food allergies that would be grouped in with these ones that are, so the IgE mediated ones. And the ones that they tested for were cow's milk, egg white, wheat, codfish and peanut.
Oh, okay.
So there's other allergies that probably are mediated via different mechanisms, but these listed foods would be mediated via IgE, so they would
Okay.
be influenced by the same mechanism,
It's called,
hypothetically.
it's called quite a common allergy then.
I've never heard of anybody
me
allergic
neither.
to cod.
That's weird.
But like peanut,
Yeah. Milk,
Wheat.
egg white wheat, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of
milk.
those are the ones I got told I had, but then afterwards got told those tests are bullshit, so I don't know.
yeah, so I looked that up and they're IgG tests. And they're the ones that are really controversial at the moment. So
Yeah.
they're specific food intolerance tests. And actually, they just tell you that you're intolerant to anything that you've eaten recently.
Yeah, that's what I read
Yeah.
about them as well.
Yeah. So they're not to be trusted. But
Yeah.
these tests are specifically for allergies.
Mine was just like a blood finger prick, and then they gave me back this thing full of results with all these mad numbers in it, being like, oh my god, you're so allergic to this, and you're allergic to cow's milk, but you're actually allergic to goat's milk and sheep's milk too, and you're allergic to fat that's in dairy, so you shouldn't eat
Intolerant.
intolerant to the fat that's in dairy, so you shouldn't really eat red meat either, because the same fat's in that, and just
Was this from an actual doctor?
No, it was like a
Nutritionist.
allergy clinic. No, it wasn't
Right,
even
oh.
a nutritionist.
Kate got these after being admitted to hospital after St. Patrick's Day 'cause she was so hungover.
And then it developed into a
And
disease.
she was there for 10 days. I laughed, but it was actually quite scary.
It was a little bit stressful, yeah.
No one really knew what happened.
We still don't really.
And then they came out and were like, oh, it was food intolerances.
No, they never said
Bullshit
that it
food
was.
intolerances.
That was someone else.
Okay.
The doctor told me.
The witch doctor down the road.
The doctor told me I had pancreatitis, but I don't have that.
Yeah.
So weird.
Anyway.
Just a bad hangover.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts?
On everything, or
Yeah, just in general.
nutrition?
Do you feel like you learned more about science?
Definitely, yeah.
I think so.
Do you feel like if you were to read something or like something was to pop up on your newsfeed about that mentioned either aplesia or
Because, yeah, the news are going to be like, oh, aplesia.
you never know. You never know. Or Kate's favourite word, sensitization. Or gut microbiome allergy.
Well, I probably
That
would
you
have.
might be like, oh, I'll read this.
I probably would have read the allergy one already, just because I have some. But I maybe would think about those, or just some of the words that were in that one.
I feel I would.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't have before.
Very good. Glad. Our work here is done.
We
Nice.
spread the love of science.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dun, dun.
Thank you for coming.
No worries.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having us.
Been some great guests.
Would you come back?
Maybe.
You're only allowed to come back if you make us more food.
I had a feeling that was going to be thrown in there.
Yeah.
It was delish food.
It was
Thank
great.
You, Kate.
Thanks.
That was good. In case our listeners were wondering, we'll put the recipes on the blog. No, I'm only messing, we won't.
Kate made us a chorizo bean and potato stew, and then chocolate, olive oil, and sea salt cookies.
Yeah.
With some Viennetta on the side.
Viennetta.
Hashtag sponsor us.
Co-factory still love you though.
Right.
Guys, I have 2% battery on my laptop.
Okay, cool. Let's wrap this up.
Okay.
So, thank you for coming. You were a brilliant guest.
Thanks for having us.
And everyone at home, if you're listening to us, whatever platform you're on, please rate us 5 stars. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Layout Podcast.
You can email us on @lateoutpodcast.
No.
You can read our blog on.
What happened to the email?
I forget what one I'm supposed to do next.
You can email us at layoutpodcast@word.
No! That's what I tried to say too. You can read the blog on layoutpodcast.wordpress.com.
Or email us on layoutpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Co-fresh, Viennetta and McDonald's if you fancy it. I know you're a bit too big, you've bigger fish to fry, etc. But you know, you can all
You can all fuck yourself if you haven't sponsored us.
But really sponsor us, please. Okay, cool.
Bye.
Goodbye. Meow, meow, meow. There's a bit of rustling going on. Rustle, rustle.
So, yeah. Okay.
These are the bits that get cut out and we just sound like we're bang, bang, bang. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but we don't.
You do that a lot.
Who?
That.
And I probably should have done a little bit more reading before this. But there we go. This is why this podcast is so real.